This is Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkel.
Welcome back to Inside the Wolf's Den with your hosts, Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkel. As we are wrapping up 2023, gearing up for 2024, we thought goal setting would be appropriate for this episode.
Yeah, I think this time of year, everybody's looking at annual planning. I heard, who is it, Ed Milet, that said this is your separation season, right? So
I've been saying that, actually. I'm
not separate from your spouse or anything like that, because our daughter was like, I was like, it's separation season. We got to separate from, and she's like, what do you mean? She got all sad. I'm like, no, like it's separation from your past or your other self, and
what other people are not willing to do, right?
Yeah, separate yourself from the competition.
Absolutely.
But it comes down to, I think now still, we were just talking about that with Brett. Like, hey, now's not the time to lay down and take a break, and now's the time to like, hey, let's get after it. Let's go.
Most people would, right? Most people are taking a break right now. So what are you going to do to propel yourself for 2024? Not just on a business level, but also on a personal level.
Yeah.
Right?
So we usually do a podcast like this every year, and so we're going to talk about kind of like what we do internally, both from a business perspective and a personal level, on planning our next year and the goals and how we're going to accomplish and conquer next year. So
let's get started.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of we talk a lot about it. We utilize Traction or EOS in our company. So if you have not read the book Traction, I highly recommend it. We even hired a implementer or integrator into our organization, and then Brett's now assumed those roles of running it, but we, I think it keeps us focused. It keeps us towards our goals. It helps us map everything out and then really track them every week. And so we're going to get into it, but also we're going to talk to you also about on a personal level how you can kind of do the same thing. What's kind of the first step? So I think initially, I think define your leadership team, right? Correct.
Who's going to be on your leadership team?
Who's going to be making these decisions?
The critical stakeholders in your organization.
Correct. And on a personal level, it's probably just you or you and your spouse.
Yeah.
But
and I think your kids as well, And so actually, I can't read what's the book that we with Jim and Jamie Shields,
you have 18 summers.
18 summers. Yeah. But that's, so really like EOS, you're doing the same thing. You're having a boardroom meeting with your family.
Correct.
Yeah.
So what we usually do is we usually take some time between Christmas and New Year's, and Joni and I, and usually sometimes we get the kids for a part of it, but we will take an afternoon and really map out our entire 2024, like what we want to accomplish on a personal level, what financial goals we have, what maybe it's, acquiring something, maybe it's paying off certain things, maybe it's certain trips, and so I will actually take a calendar for the entire year, and especially when it comes to the trips, and we'll map out everything for the entire 12 months, like what trips we're going to take, what obligations we have. And so we kind of map out with using a calendar.
Yep.
So,
and I think, the one for those that are not sure, like how to get started, start with asking the question, like, what does success look like to you, both on a personal level and, a business level, and kind of start there to define your goals.
Yeah. And so there's a balance between, I think you got to stretch yourself, because they got to make you uncomfortable if you're going to move the needle. But you also, have some wins in there. And as we talk about breaking it down from your 3-year to your 1 year to your quarterly goals, and then into weekly, tracking your weekly performance, you really want to have things that you can achieve and accomplish and celebrate those wins.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also we talked about this in a prior episode, but having a vision board, right? Writing down all your wants and your desires on that vision board so you can really see it. Because if you don't see it, you're not going to accomplish it.
Humans are emotional creatures. And you're going to be motivated emotion. You got to be motivated emotionally to really attack these goals. So it's, I think, I don't know, I'm speaking to myself right now, because it's like, there's some things I want in my life, but it's not like emotional enough yet or it's not painful enough, or it's not pushing me to really make that extra effort.
Right.
And there's times in my life where there's things that really, like, man, I can't think about anything else. I'm obsessed with it, and accomplish
that's how
it.
obsessed. And I remember the competition is actually when I was doing the fitness competition. Like, I was so obsessed. I had a goal, and I was going to reach that goal no matter what. I was so obsessed with it. I even posted a photo on the mirror in the garage so that I can wake up every morning and see that photo of what I wanted to look like at the end of the competition.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got to get that obsessed with it sometimes.
So first, going back to, that's like on a personal level, business level, you set up your leadership team. If you don't have one already, if you're just a one man or one woman show, that you are the leadership team. Maybe you want to bring in your accountant, somebody else, maybe somebody that advises you, but you're the one setting up everything.
And what does your leadership team look like? Most people ask that. Like, what should it consist of, right? So
I think
you have
go ahead, sorry.
accounting, operations, right?
Marketing
and sales.
And then and so for us, it's us two as the founders or the owners. Brett as the COO. We have an operations person, and then an accounting person, and then marketing and finance.
Yes.
And so they each take their own responsibilities and roles, and usually their rocks and what their goals are set up along those buckets. So, but and so that's what makes up our leadership team. So ours are 6. We've had as much as 8,
and I think that is probably
we get more
too much.
More done at 6 than we do at 8.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just the people, but and then you set, a date and a duration. So your annual planning, you should schedule it. So if you haven't already scheduled it, or it's not already in the calendar, it's now set the time where you're going to take a day. So we take 2 days to do our annual planning for a business. So I think it helps to do it offsite. We've done it onsite before, meaning we've done everything where we've traveled to another state and done an Airbnb and took in the whole team, and that gets very expensive. We've also, but lately we usually do something in town. If the people on your leadership team are out of state, they'll fly in. But we try to make it a fun event. So we've done everything from the the symphony, and then then we've done like Rockets games, and then so we try to make it fun, dinner, and then also a full day of planning, or day and a half of planning.
And I think the whole goal with that is so you have that time also to bond with your team, and then when you get down to the work, you're focused on the goals itself, and your meeting versus wandering off if you're in the office and you're thinking about other things. People coming in and out of the meeting. So yeah. When
we had it here in our office, you just get
distractions.
They're just stuff that come in. They know you're here, so the people still they think they got a fire and they need help, and so and then for you and I personally, we've done some cool things. So like if we're traveling during that time period, we usually try to pick an afternoon where we can just really, whether it be, I think we've done it in New Mexico, we've done it in like front of a fire, or just somewhere quiet, peaceful, and it just
same concept. Right? So you don't get the distractions from the day-to-day life, right?
So pick a time, and you should be doing this kind of stuff in December, I think, so that you're hitting the ground. What you're going towards for 2024. A lot of times we do it right at that last week. For business wise, we usually wait until the first week of January. And we only do that because we go over financials. And typically you can have almost your financials done. But we choose that first week so that our accounting department can have all our financials, so we can really analyze, because as part of our leadership team is their full transparency on the financials. So how we do as a business, how much money we made, how much money we lost, whatever it is, we really go over in detail and how we can improve that.
Right. And then once we kind of define those goals and meet together on the financials, then a lot of times most of the times we actually present that to the entire organization.
Correct. Yeah. And we'll talk about that. But we define the agenda. So whoever's leading this should come up with a full agenda. And so we're working on that right now. Like, so some of the topics, some of the things that have been sitting in our parking lot. So we have we put a lot of ideas and thoughts. So maybe software changes, maybe processes and system changes. We'll put those in the long-term parking lot. And those are some of the issues that we'll discuss at the annual. And because if they're a big issue like that or big goal, it's going to take a whole year, some of these to accomplish. So then, you're going to talk about how you're going to break it down, how you're going to accomplish it, and start breaking it down into quarterly tasks. And anyway.
Yeah, I think it's important to also to get your employees' feedback to your leadership team's feedback before that. That way, there might be some things that you're not thinking about that your team is thinking about or struggling with. And so it's important that you get their feedback prior to that. So it also gets them thinking too. Correct. Before we actually have the meeting.
Yeah. Another step in preparation for the meeting is get your performance of last year. So how did you do in 2023? How's your KPIs? How's the revenue goals? If it's how many doors did you bring in? How many houses did you sell? Did you, what was your gross revenue? What's your EBITDA? All that. And so we can talk about it. So you got to know where you left off, but that's looking in the rear view, but like you got to know that. And so that you can set it and then on a personal level, it could be the
same thing.
Yeah. If you had a goal to save so much money, where'd you end up? If you had a goal to pay off something, did you hit it? Did you accomplish it? Did you, if it's weight loss, right. Yeah. Where are you at?
And if you didn't meet those goals, that's okay. But how can you improve, going into 2024, the next year? What are some things that you can do better to get closer to your goals?
Correct. And then so once you're having your meeting and your annual planning, is sit down and really start looking at your rocks. So rocks are defined as like goals or annual goals. And we're going to break those down quarterly, but for us, it always starts with the BHAG. So it always starts with your big, hairy, audacious goal. What are you really looking to accomplish? Long-term, way down the line, something maybe 10 years out. And so what is that goal? We have on a property management levels, we have a number of units we want to manage and a number of gross revenue we want to generate. I think on a personal level, we want our retirement date and our passive income or revenue that we want to generate, or the amount of investment and savings that we want to have by that date to be able to accomplish it and retire. So that's like our BHAG. But then you look at, and we break it down like kind of look at a 3-year, some of the bigger. So you break that down and look at it in a 3-year goal, and then from there you're going to look, okay, what is it going to accomplish to get to that BHAG, and what do you need to hit every 3 years to get there? And then from there, you're going to break down your 12-month. Yeah. And so that's really where it starts. And that's really where the planning
it does. But I do want to say, though, make sure that you have a vision, because you can't set any of this unless you know where you're going, right? Your team has to be backing this. So if you don't have a vision, I think it's important that you start with the vision, the mission, like what are you wanting to accomplish as an organization or personally? Then you can start with your rocks.
Yeah. How do you feel about the vision? I think we have a lot of younger people that listen to this, but also in our organization. The gentleman we interviewed yesterday for a job position kind of reminds me of that too. A little bit like all over the board, right? They got big, and I probably at that age I was probably the same. I don't know. Was I think I had a lot of big goals, but I didn't feel like I bounced around as quickly, and I didn't change my vision as fast as people do today. Like they hit one roadblock and they're always changing into something different. It's like, well, in order to get to your goal, you're probably going to get figure out a way to get over that roadblock, through the roadblock, you know, and because no matter what, you're going to have roadblocks all the time.
I think it's just with maturity and personal growth and development. I mean, I remember when we didn't start off with a vision early on. Like, we were kind of like that. We were young and we did.
I had a vision.
Okay, you had a vision, but it wasn't clearly defined.
Oh, I had a certain number of houses I wanted to buy and sell. I had a certain amount of houses I wanted to manage.
What I'm getting at,
I saw myself at that. Like, I could feel it, taste it. I knew exactly. No, but it wasn't as good as I thought it would be when I got there. It wasn't, when you get there, it's like, like, you know, your lifestyle increases, but it wasn't. But I said it higher, but
I get that. I mean, you're different from a lot of individuals out there, where I think that it changes over time as you grow and mature.
Yeah.
So,
but I guess what I'm getting at is like, how can, give them some advice. How do they set that vision? How do they know? And maybe they don't know because they don't know what they don't know. I think you can get around mentors. You can get around coaches that can help you define that vision. I think is a good strategy, right? I think you're going to need some guidance because you haven't gone through there. You don't know. I think you got to be vulnerable. I think most
asking
people
yourselves a question like, what does success look like to you? What is your why? Why are you doing this? Right? Going back to your why. I think asking yourself those questions. I think evaluating where you're truly at and assessing where you're, like, being honest with yourself. Like, okay, yes, you have this much debt. You have, you know, you're living week to week. Like, okay, really be honest with yourself. Like, what is it going to like? And so it might be that year that you need to increase your income and lower your expenses. That might be the thing you need to focus on that year, to get you that next level. It might be to, X some things out of your life and business so that you can focus on those things.
Are you talking to me? Right?
No. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I mean, it did. I mean,
it's different for everybody. Yeah. That's why I always like to ask, like, what does success look like to you? It's different for everybody, and you have to be the one to ask yourself that.
Yeah. But I think, like Joni said, really set some time aside from this planning session to where you just spend some time with yourself and think about the vision and where you really, what it really matters in life. What do you really, and it could be just, hey, I want Fridays off. Hey, I want extra time with my kids, or hey, I just want to take one extra vacation a year with my family, or I don't know, whatever, private school, whatever, I don't know, whatever vision you have that you want to accomplish. I think that, that's defining it and saying, and what is it going to take to get there? Because that's going to help you dictate how you're going to try to, what goals you're going to try to get for that year.
And if you have a bigger organization, I think it's important that you get with your leadership team to create that vision together. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, they're in the trenches every day. We just got out of a meeting with a lot of our leaders and kind of brought up some of those topics because I think I have all the best ideas, but then, like, it doesn't mean I'm not the one actually doing it on a day-to-day. So, like, I need their feedback on what
100%.
Yeah, what because they could say, hey, Shawn, that doesn't really work, or this, here's what you can't see. So their feedback is crucial again. So
we went on a tangent on vision, but setting your annual goals, right?
Yeah.
Make sure you're saying those rocks. And I do want to make a point that even though you might set a rock for your leadership team, whatever, each of team member in the leadership team has their rock, right? Doesn't necessarily mean that they have to complete that rock. They can delegate that to other team members of their team, right? But they own that rock. They're responsible for making sure that rock gets completed at the end. Correct.
That's a good point. And another point with that is I don't think anybody should have more than 2 to 3 rocks. So it's probably too many.
Yes.
So if you have a 6-person team, then probably only maybe 6 to 8 goals or rocks. Too many, I think you're not going to accomplish it. And they also got to be big enough rocks. We've had that issue.
I wanted
in the past.
because I think there's a certain percentage. If you finish those rocks and like 100% of that, then okay, then probably you didn't set those rocks accordingly.
Or you didn't, or you want a big enough goal.
Right.
Hard enough goal. It should make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they got to be big enough, but also it shouldn't be too much. So probably 2 rocks per person or less. But that's kind of, and same thing on the personal level, you probably, 2 to 3 things, big things you can accomplish in a year if you really focus at it. So if you want to lose 20, 30 pounds, whatever, that you're probably going to have to really focus in on that. And you're probably not going to be able to do maybe 1 other big goal, 2 other goals. Maybe it's paying down debt. Maybe it's getting a raise. Maybe it's, starting a new business. But if you're starting a new business, I guarantee you it's going to be awfully hard to lose weight because you're going to be, it's going to take so much out of you to start a new business. You're probably going to be not eating it's not impossible, but it's going to make it harder. So
it's going to be harder. Yeah,
so just
for sure.
Be mindful of that. Identify some key initiatives. So once your goals are set, you want to break down the key initiatives that it's going to take, or what sub projects is it going to take to execute on that goal. So it might be setting up a committee to plan out how are you going to get there. That you might not have all the steps that it's going to require. So we this, to give you a good example, this past year we adopted a new software and had to move out of another software into this one and add a bunch of things to it. But it was a whole year project, and we finished, but it was such a big undertaking, and it was you had to break it down, and you had to have committees, and you had to have meetings weekly just on the software and the performance. And so it took a lot of planning, a lot of initiatives to get there. Same thing.
I think it's great that you mentioned that. I also think that you should give yourself a time frame, the time limit. Like, are you going to be, spending an hour or 2 hours a week on this? Because at the end, we've had that too, where we show up to a meeting and leadership, how are you improving on your rocks? Oh, I haven't done anything because life gets busy. Things happen, right? Fires to put out. And so we don't get to our rocks. So putting that in there, if you're going to spend an hour or 2 hours a week on that rock, so that way okay, I can mark time off my calendar to make sure that rock gets completed, and schedule the time in your calendar so you can make sure that it gets done.
Yeah. And a lot of these initiatives and projects are kind of broken down in what Traction calls IDS, which is identify, discuss, and solve. So you want to address these challenges and issues and discuss them. So we've been building, like I told you, a whole agenda of IDS items for the long term, for the annual, to discuss that probably going to end up, not all of them, but at least a lot of them are going to end up as our rocks for the year that we've been building. And so, that's the biggest portion of your annual planning is going through that.
Right.
So then once you have initiatives, rocks, then you're going to create an accountability chart, because you got to hold everybody accountable. And so we meet weekly with our leadership team, and we go over our accountability chart. So everybody has to report. Did you knock out your hour or 2 hours or 3 hours that you said you were going to commit to this project, and work on it.
And another way to hold them accountable too is, if they're working on a project, then they have something to present to the team, right? Like how they're coming along with that project, right?
That's good. Yeah.
And also to get feedback from the team too, because, they might be thinking something different, and, maybe need some help, and the leadership team can really kind of help push it through.
Yeah. What I was going to say with that, but create an accountability chart, keep them accountable. I think on a personal level, this is probably where we've actually struggled. We probably have neglected is I think you need somebody outside to if it's just you alone, it could be your spouse, it could be outside. So once you maybe set your personal goals, you got to share them with somebody, because you're going to say, hey, these are some of the goals I set for 2024 for myself. Can you hold me accountable?
Yeah.
Can you make it a point, maybe put a calendar reminder once a month? I need to report to you where I'm at, what I accomplished.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's something that we do struggle on a personal level.
Yeah, it could be your spouse. So we've never done that where we're like, where are you at? You were supposed to be here by this date. Did you hit it or no?
Yeah.
Or it could be weekly check-ins. And so I think get an accountability partner on a personal level, I think, if you really want to accomplish that goal.
100%.
And then allocate resources to discuss and decide the resource allocation, because it's sometimes it might affect your budget depending on some of these goals. What is it going to take? You had to discuss now that you have your leadership team. Okay, hey, did we have to pull people from other things to bring this in? Hey,
right.
This might involve, two of us to work on this. How are we who's going to be involved in it within our team? Is it going to require a financial commitment? And how are we going to accomplish it? And then on a personal level, I think you need to bring in your family. It's like, okay, we set this goal and this goal. That means we're not going to be able to do as much because we're working on paying off our house. We're working on paying off, this, or we're planning.
Absolutely.
We're not going to take as many short trips because we're going to Europe, whatever it could be, so you got to discuss that with your family and what you're trying to accomplish. So everybody's on the same page and knows. And then lastly, just break down those yearly into quarterly rocks. And that's going to set up your quarterly, and go ahead and book your quarterly meetings for the year. And those for us are typically half-day events. They're 4 to 5 hours. But it's going through your quarterly rocks that all line up to your
annual goals,
your 12 months. So we break it down and look at our annual quarterly and figure out what we're going to do on a quarterly basis. But I lost my second half of my sheet. So break down your quarterly goals and set the accountability chart for your quarterly goals as well, and break those down. And then we use a system called 90 IO. So it's spelled out 90, and then .io is our system. I think it's a great software. I like it. It helps us keep us on track. We run our meetings out of there. And it's all based on Traction and EOS, and so
you can create everything on there. You can put your vision in there, your all of that, and time your meetings too, because sometimes we go off tangents talking about other things that are not pertaining to your goals, right? And so it helps us, like you said, stay on track.
And so our to-dos, our rocks, our accountability chart, everything's in there. We also run how do I say this? We have subgroups in 90. So meaning each pod or the leaders are doing their own. So outside from the leadership team, we also have pod meetings, which is all the mid-level managers, and they're running EOS. And then you have subgroups running EOS themselves for their so each pod, the accounting team, they're all running EOS, and everything can be tracked within EOS. And as a leadership, you can see all of it, but all of it should flow up to your
right. Yeah. It allows everybody to speak the same language, and I think that that's a true organization when you can really, when you're doing EOS on a leadership level, and then your mid-level managers and pushing it down to the bottom, because then you have alignment within the whole entire organization.
Correct. And along that lines is once we have our annual meeting, there's always I forgot what you call it, but a communication meeting, annual, to share with the team where you're headed.
State of the union.
State of the union.
Yeah, there you go.
Meeting, and we address hey, okay, these are the rocks we set for the year. These are the rocks we set for this upcoming quarter, and we do this every quarter. But the
financials, be transparent with them.
And then we do the financials. So we'll share on a high level how did we do in 2023? What rocks did we accomplish? Because you got to share what were the wins. So what did we accomplish? What tasks? What goals did we hit? Which ones didn't we hit? Why didn't we hit it? And they want to know. And then financially, how did we do? How did the company do? And then we share with them the upcoming year.
Yeah,
so where
absolutely.
are we headed? What are we looking to accomplish? It makes a big difference.
It does, because they have their KPI, key performance indicators that they have to track weekly. And so really knowing the why behind those KPIs is extremely important. Why we push them on a daily basis to hit their numbers. Mm-hmm. And when you state the state of the union meeting, it has that all in there. It states the why.
Yeah. And also helps them know where I think for the company going so they can know on a personal level where they're headed. Like maybe they have a personal goal to get a raise. And it's like, okay, well, is the company growing? Are they headed, or how are they doing? They're looking to hire or promote, add these 2 positions. That's maybe a goal I want to try to accomplish, is being promoted at this level. All that matters to them. And so they want to know where you're headed and what you're trying to do. They love to see that the company's growing, that the company's healthy, gives them reassurance. They're in the right place, I think. And so all that matters.
Communication is key, right?
Correct. And just alignment and clarity. So, but then once you've done that, I think you're on your way. I think start setting your quarterly reviews and assessing your progress every week and every quarter, and making sure you're staying in alignment and you're staying on focus, on track. Sometimes things change, and sometimes a quarterly rock, you might get into it, and your committee that you set up goes down this rabbit hole, and you're like, well, wait, there's too many issues. We're going to probably pivot on that rock,
right.
We might push it back to another year, or no, it just wasn't, it wasn't the right tool that we needed. We need to research something else. And so you might need to pivot, but
on a personal level as well, maybe you're not, you maybe need to reset yourself because things aren't going the way you had planned. Right. And so that's why it's important to do those check-ins, so that way if you're meeting those expectations or not.
And it's not that you failed, because I think you discovered what, that it wasn't the right thing for you, it wasn't the right time for you to that particular, whatever it's a goal or business wise, and maybe you didn't know what you didn't know. And so I think it's still, it might not be like a win, but it's still not a failure, because I think you're moving in the right direction. Because I think in our lives, every time there's a pivot or there's a change, a lot of times good things come out of it. You don't always see it at the immediate when you're going through it, but I think a lot of change can create a lot of good so pivoting is not a bad thing necessarily all the time. Good things come out of it sometimes. And so, and sometimes it's just, you were on the wrong course. And so you need to get on the right.
Reset yourself.
And there's other times you got to be aware and make sure that, should I pivot? Sometimes if it's challenging, it's because you have some growing to do, I think, on a person. So I think
that's why you should have a coach and mentor in pretty much every, in business, in personal, fitness, spiritual, all those buckets. You got to make sure that you have an accountability, somebody to hold you accountable that you can also talk to.
To kind of guide you.
To make sure you're thinking right. Am I on the right track?
Do I need to pivot, or do I need to just persevere?
Right.
And those are sometimes hard to see the difference. So yes.
Because it's easy to just quit, say, it's too hard, I'm not going to do this. I'll just throw in the towel. Yeah. Right.
And hopefully that accountability coach will be very, is willing to tell you what you need to hear. Because sometimes it's, hey, you have some growing to do. That's why you haven't broken through. You need to work on X, Y, and Z in your character, or your personality, or you don't have the skill set, needed yet. You need to learn this first to make that monumental change.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, anything else? Any last words?
Last words is, so what are you going to do today? Do not wait until the new year to get your goals straight, right? So plan that out, whether on a personal or on a business level. Sit down and execute.
Awesome. And we'll see you all next year. And looking forward to rocking and rolling. We're going to have a market update, kind of what we're seeing in the real estate market, in the business market, what we're seeing from our perspective and our markets and our businesses that we run. But so stay tuned for that. So it'll be, I think, the first week of January.
It's crazy to say, but Happy New Year, everyone.
So Happy New Year. Hope you're all enjoying your holiday season, and go get them.
See you next time, guys.
You've been listening to Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkel. Tons of entrepreneurial podcasts are out there talking. Talking. But Joni and Shawn are living it every single day. Their portfolio now includes many franchises and medium-sized businesses. We talk about the trials and motivators of successfully running a business. Join us again soon for another podcast. But until then, reach out on the website at InsideTheWolfsDen.com, on Facebook at Inside the Wolf's Den, on Instagram at Inside the Wolf Den. We'll see you again soon. This is Inside the Wolf's Den. We'll see you next time.